Why intelligent people don't care about social life. Smart people don't need friends. What if the life you're living isn't truly yours? What if the person you've become is just a mask hiding your authentic self? Carl Jung's concept of the shadow reveals the parts of us we've hidden away, our pain, anger, fears, and desires, all buried deep to fit in, to survive. But the more we bury, the more it shapes us, often without us even realizing it. True healing doesn't come from ignoring these parts. It comes from facing them. Your shadow isn't your enemy. It's the key to becoming the person you were always meant to be. In this video, we explore how embracing your shadow can lead you back to your true self, reclaim what was lost, and unlock the purpose that's been hidden in the dark. If you've ever felt lost, disconnected, or empty, this video is for you. Let's begin. Certainly, you're not the only one who experiences this. Imagine a moment in life when you're sitting in a gathering, talking about everyday things, but those words don't really touch you. You feel like you're listening to empty stories, words that bring no value, and compliments that are shallow and insincere. This feeling makes you wonder, do I really belong here? In fact, today's social life has become a game where people are always chasing after rules that aren't real. People live to be recognized, to feel like they belong to some community. But once you realize that recognition isn't the most important thing, you'll start to feel that loneliness is inevitable. Loneliness is not pain. It's an opportunity for you to turn inward and find your true self. By realizing that you don't truly need acceptance from the outside, you begin to feel freedom. Freedom not from escaping meaningless conversations, but from understanding that not every encounter can help you grow. When you no longer feel compelled to join in those games, you will feel much lighter. Intelligence and society become two separate worlds. You no longer feel like you're part of that world because you realize that, despite its vibrancy and noise, society can't meet your need for understanding and sincerity. This makes you feel isolated, and sometimes that loneliness becomes a burden, but truly, it's the moment when you can realize that intelligence cannot easily blend with the world people are living in. While society values acceptance and easy relationships, intelligence demands depth and understanding, and sometimes, to understand the truth, you must accept loneliness, accept being separate to truly find wisdom. This loneliness is an inseparable part of the journey back to your true self, but instead of viewing it as unbearable pain, you should see it as a teacher, an opportunity to deepen your understanding of yourself, because this loneliness will teach you independence, strength, and most importantly, the ability to live authentically without needing validation from the world outside. The loneliness of the awakened one often comes with the realization that what others seek is not what you desire. You no longer feel the need to participate in trivial conversations or dive into relationships that, will only leave you feeling empty. You realize that the truth about yourself is more important than any external validation. And throughout this journey, you may face a deep sense of loneliness. But the strange thing is, it is precisely in that loneliness that you find an incredibly powerful freedom, no longer bound by society's expectations. You can live authentically, no longer playing the roles that society imposes on you. This is when you begin to build confidence, not from the validation of others, but from within, from the acceptance and love you have for yourself. On the other hand, isolation is the state you fall into when you feel unable to connect with anyone, when you are pushed to the fringes of society, or when you feel you cannot integrate. Isolation is a confinement that you don't choose, a sense of being separated that you can't change. It makes you feel lacking, empty, and sometimes even loses your faith in people and the world. Both of these states are difficult, but loneliness can become a powerful tool for you to gain deeper self-awareness. In contrast, isolation can be the pain you cannot heal on your own, unless you find a way to reconnect with yourself and with those who truly understand you. When you live to be accepted, you lose yourself little by little. Have you ever felt exhausted from living up to the expectations of others, when your decisions don't come from your own desires, but from wanting to please everyone around you? You feel yourself drifting further from who you really are, like someone wearing a mask that they can't take off. This is the cost of living to be accepted. We, human beings seeking approval, sometimes fail to realize that in the process, we are losing the true essence of who we are. Society sets standards and molds that we must follow, and unconsciously, we accept transforming ourselves into another version of who we are, a version that may please everyone around us, but never truly satisfies ourselves. The continuous search for acceptance from others gradually makes us forget our own needs and desires within. We change ourselves to fit into societal norms, rather than allowing ourselves to develop naturally in our own way. And by doing so, we slowly become people who no longer live authentically. Human nature tends to lean towards safety and acceptance. We don't want to be isolated or feel different. But the more we try to live in a way that others want, the more we feel lacking, lost, and disconnected from our true selves. That feeling of not being yourself will lead you into disappointment and invisible pain. When you begin to reflect on yourself, letting go of the habits of pleasing others, and instead live for yourself, that's when you start to liberate yourself from these invisible chains. You will realize that true freedom does not come from pleasing everyone, but from living true to your real self, even if that means you may no longer be accepted the way you once were. However, remember, on this journey, you won't be alone. Inner freedom is not easy, but only when you dare to live authentically can you build an inner strength without relying on external acknowledgement or validation. Social acceptance may change, but self-acceptance is the only thing that will carry you through all challenges in life. Even if you have to endure loneliness, differences, or even rejection from those around you, that is part of the journey to reclaim yourself, to stop living a life that isn't truly yours. Just like looking in the mirror, the wise person's mirror doesn't show us what we want to see, but what we truly have. This is not easy because it touches our ego, the illusions we have nurtured for so long. However, the truth can only be seen when we dare to face it, when we no longer run away from the parts of ourselves we've neglected. That is when the real values of life begin to reveal themselves. When you dare to look at the shadow parts of yourself and are no longer afraid of what they reflect, you will find freedom. You no longer have to live artificially according to society's expectations. Instead, you will begin to live in your own way, following the path of truth and true freedom. Selective silence is not avoidance. It is a powerful and subtle form of communication. When you know when to remain silent, you are asserting that you don't need validation from those around you, and you are not dependent on what society wants you to express. Silence helps you maintain your identity, keeps you from getting caught up in things beyond your control, and most importantly, it helps you preserve clarity and wisdom. By choosing silence in unnecessary situations, you allow yourself space to connect with the truest thoughts and emotions, instead of getting caught up in situations that only increase artificiality. Silence creates an inner world of stillness, where intellect and emotions can grow freely, where you are not influenced by the superficial societal needs. That is the power of silence, not abandonment, but choice. When you no longer engage in meaningless social games, you will discover a new world, one full of meaning, a world where you are the one in control. You are the one creating value from within yourself, not simply seeking validation from others. When you stop seeking approval, it's when you truly begin to exist. Imagine a life no longer bound by the need for approval, a life where you don't have to live up to societal expectations or chase after the standards others set for you. This is when you truly begin to live, when you stop seeking approval from others and, instead, find satisfaction within yourself. Everyone has a natural need to be liked, to be respected, but when you live only to gain recognition from others, you lose yourself in the process. You start changing, bending yourself to fit others' expectations, and gradually lose the true values of who you are. At that point, you are no longer yourself. You become the version others want, not the true essence of who you are. Schopenhauer pointed out that seeking approval is a subtle trap, leading you to exhaustion and self-loss. Approval is not something that can give you lasting peace. In fact, that approval only exists as a temporary affirmation, but it keeps you in a state of suffering, always feeling lacking, and always craving acceptance from others. You live in insecurity. never escaping from society's demands. This freedom comes from accepting yourself, not needing to please anyone but yourself. And when you achieve this, your life will become much lighter, no longer burdened by the expectations and approval of society. You will be able to develop yourself without being confined by the standards set by others. And most importantly, you will live a meaningful life, not because someone loves you, but because you love yourself. When you begin the path of seeking truth, when you begin looking into the issues that society hesitates to confront, you will find yourself becoming an outsider. You will no longer be drawn to shallow conversations, formal social gatherings. You will feel a strange emptiness in your heart, a place where you once sought comfort in the approval of the crowd. Those ahead of their time are never accepted in their time. They are treated as peculiar, not fitting in with society, but as time passes, when their ideas become clearer and applicable, they become legends, people whose influence profoundly shapes human progress. They don't need immediate recognition. They just need to persist with the truth they have found, no matter the hardships and loneliness they face. And when you realize this, you will also realize that your life is not about pleasing others, but about living in alignment with your true nature, the truth. Though it may be uncomfortable and unfamiliar to those around you, will always be the key to your growth and progress. You may not be understood immediately, but in the end, it's your sincerity and determination that will create lasting value. This is the path those ahead of their time have walked, the path of continuous creativity, of daring to live differently, of persevering in pursuing what they believe in, even if it means accepting loneliness and being forgotten. And in this life, if you want to master yourself, want to build inner strength, and find true meaning, you must walk that same path, daring to stand alone, daring to face the truth, and walking without fear. When you stop playing roles, you will find happiness in being true to yourself, in accepting the imperfections within your being. And from that, you will discover that true strength doesn't come from adapting, from always pleasing others, but from being honest with yourself. You don't need to chase what society calls success. You just need to live with what you believe is right. And when you truly live this way, you will notice the miraculous. No more loneliness following you, no more anxiety about what others think of you. You will become freer, stronger, and more whole than ever before. It is only when you no longer need to play social roles that you will truly become yourself and begin walking the path of growth, healing, and inner peace. When you stop playing roles, when you no longer need external validation, you will also discover that what you've been seeking all this time is not what society has drawn out for you. You will find yourself in the aspects you once overlooked. And the best part is, when you live true to yourself, you will never again have to face anxiety or pretension. The quiet one, the one who truly holds power. In a world filled with noise and distraction, the quiet ones are the ones with the greatest power. They don't need to raise their voices or try to attract attention. Their silence is a statement of inner strength, a power no one can easily take away. The quiet one doesn't need to say much to be recognized. They don't live for praise or admiration. It is in their silence that they express profound confidence, knowing exactly who they are and not needing approval from anyone. When you realize you don't need to entertain people to be loved, when you no longer need to participate in society's games to have value, you will find an endless source of power within yourself. Interestingly, this silence often makes others feel uncomfortable and uneasy. Those who cannot bear the stillness tend to create noise to fill that void. They seek attention, they try to please others, but meanwhile, the quiet one is the one who truly holds power. Their silence is not loneliness, but a complete acceptance of themselves. Especially when you stop engaging in social games, you will begin to attract those who resonate with your frequency, those who truly understand and value the essence within you. These people are not caught up in the social race. They seek genuine connections, and your quietness becomes a shining light that guides them to peace and self-awareness. When you learn to live in silence, you are no longer swept away by the rhythm of those around you. You find true freedom, not by escaping society, but by not needing to please everyone. You are yourself, with everything you have and don't have. and that is the greatest strength you can possess. Reaction, or true self. Do you live for yourself, or are you just reflecting the world? In life, many of us live based on unconscious reactions to external stimuli. We react according to society's expectations, the standards set, or even the expectations our family and friends have for us. But are we really living for ourselves, or are we just shadows of the outside world, reflecting what others want to see? When you live reactively, you often get caught up in the whirlwind of expectations and prejudices that you're not even aware of. You may do things you don't truly want to just to avoid criticism or being excluded. This makes you feel lost because you're not living authentically. You're just playing a role society demands you to be. The truth is, this life is not always a reaction to what's happening around you. You can choose not to react. You can choose to think before acting. And the important thing is, you can decide not to let society, others, or family expectations influence your decisions too much. When you learn to respond consciously, you begin to build a solid self, one that is not swayed by the pressures from the outside. When you live for yourself, you begin to act from a space of self-awareness and calm. You no longer chase others' biases or desires. You start to see the world through a clearer lens, and this helps you control yourself, regulate your emotions, and take actions proactively. This does not mean you abandon all relationships or social connections. On the contrary, it helps you build deeper, more genuine relationships because you are no longer afraid of being rejected or not being accepted. You live for yourself, for the true values within, not to please others. From there, your life becomes more meaningful, as you are no longer bound by unconscious reactions and can truly live the way you want. Sitting in silence, the true test of inner freedom. To truly be free, we don't need to chase after the crowd, participate in shallow conversations, or constantly seek validation from others. True freedom comes from the ability to endure silence, a state unaffected by external events. Silence is not isolation, but the ability to sit still, face oneself, and not feel fear. We live in a world constantly full of noise, information, and attention from the outside. The world is becoming more hectic, and we tend to rush after these things to avoid feeling lost. But few realize that silence is the true measure of inner freedom. Only when you can stop, hold silence, and look inward can you truly perceive your authentic self. This requires the courage to face the emotions, thoughts, and fears we have long tried to avoid in silence. There is no distraction from the outside world, only us with our deepest thoughts and feelings. It is in this moment that we must face our own darkness, the parts we have been trying to push away from our mind. When you sit in silence, you're not merely doing nothing. You are creating a space to reflect on yourself, to confront the parts of you that you may have rejected in the past. In this space, you will discover parts of yourself that haven't been acknowledged, buried emotions and desires, but also invaluable resources that you can tap into for personal growth. Silence helps you stop and reassess the path you are on. Reflect on the habits and behavioral patterns that have guided you through life. What you learn in moments of silence will help you overcome inner conflicts, and this is when you will realize that true freedom does not come from what's out there, but from being able to live authentically with yourself. When you sit still in silence, you can begin to understand the decisions that have brought you to where you are. You will no longer feel bound by others' expectations, but will find peace in taking control of your own life. This feeling is not loneliness, but a freedom that only those who understand the power of silence can experience. Walking alone doesn't mean you will always feel lonely or deprived. On the contrary, it is liberation from unreasonable expectations and unsuitable molds imposed by society. Freedom begins when you no longer live to please others. You start to realize that you don't need to pursue what society deems success or happiness. You just need to live true to yourself, and that is when you find peace. When you dare to walk alone, you will no longer feel guilty or afraid of not meeting society's expectations. You learn to reject what isn't truly you and only accept what genuinely makes you happy. This is one of the ways to heal the soul when you no longer depend on the validation of others. This is not easy at times, You will feel tired, lonely, or even disappointed when you see others still seeking acceptance from the world. However, only when you dare to stand up and choose your own path will you truly find inner freedom. You learn that fitting in is not the ultimate goal. Living authentically with yourself is what brings true value. Life will no longer be a battle to be recognized, but a journey to find and live true to your essence. When you dare to walk alone, you not only free yourself from society's judgments, but also find those who truly understand and appreciate you for who you are. Freedom is not found in being understood, but in not needing to be understood. One of the biggest misconceptions in life is that we always seek understanding from others. We want others to understand us, to empathize with our struggles, pains, and deep desires. However, according to Jung, true freedom is not found in being understood, but in realizing that you don't need to be understood by anyone. When you no longer wish for others to understand you, you free yourself from the invisible pressures of society. This doesn't mean closing your heart to others, but rather learning not to rely on external validation to feel worthy. You accept that everyone has different perspectives and experiences, and their thoughts about you are not what determine your existence and value. This freedom is not about disregarding relationships with others, but about relinquishing your dependence on their recognition. When you no longer worry about whether others understand you, you begin to live according to what truly suits you. You will realize that living true to yourself is more important than any acknowledgement or acceptance from society. This is the first step toward maturity. When you can stand firm and happy without needing others' consent or understanding, you will find deep peace. You will no longer feel lost or distressed from not being recognized. Instead, you will become your true self, free from any societal constraints, and live a meaningful life without needing to prove anything to anyone. True freedom comes when you let go of the need to be understood and begin to act according to what your heart guides you. In the stillness of solitude, you will discover truths that you never dared to face before. You will realize that when you stop seeking validation from the outside, you can begin to live a truly authentic life. Life is no longer a race for expectations or judgments from society. It becomes an inner journey, a journey of healing, self-acceptance, and self-love. This process is not easy. Many times you will feel lost and challenged, but it is in these moments that you will find light. You will understand that what you seek is not the approval of others, but harmony with yourself. When you learn to live authentically and freely, you will also inspire those around you. In the end, this healing journey is not only about you. When you return to your true self, you create a profound change in the lives of those around you. Your freedom and inner peace will shine, not as a dazzling light that makes everything around it blinding, but as a warm fire that guides and inspires souls seeking liberation just like you. And that is the journey of shining, not from loud words or actions, but from truly living, from being yourself, from living in the freedom of your true self.